Of course, I hit go live and I dropped the top to my pop bottle. Oh, all right. Hair is in the face. Need my blanket. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing all right. It's been a crazy few weeks for me. Happy to be here, though. Happy to finally be able to not only do the live show for Sword of Destiny like I was planning on doing in March, and to do now also the live show for Blood of Elves. So, for those of you that are coming in for the first time, might be new to my channel, my name is Gabby. I have the channel The Curious Owl, and this year, in the year of 2024, we are, as a team with myself, subscribers, anyone that wants to join in, doing a read-along the entire year, or most of the year at least, for the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. Very well-known series now, especially with the Netflix show that was created with Henry Cavill playing Geralt the Witcher. But in the month of March, we were supposed to have a live show for the February book, which was Sword of Destiny. And then in March, we were to read Blood of Elves for this month's live show. So if you have not read the Witcher books, I highly suggest you do so, because this live show is going to go into spoilery content for both of these books in particular. We're going to start with Sword of Destiny first, since we do need to still talk about that one. And then there will be a hard shift over to Blood of Elves, which was March's read for the month. So, please feel free, if you have read one and not the other, to skip out of one or the other if you need to. Please don't feel obligated to stay for the entire time, just because I know that there's some people who may have not read some of these books yet or didn't get to them. Totally fine. But without further ado, with all of the disclaimers and things of that nature done and over with, let us get to talking about the first book of the night, which is Sword of Destiny. Now, Sword of Destiny is basically considered a secondary prequel to the Witcher series. It is dubbed as, on the spine of my edition at least, Tales of the Witcher. Now, basically, this is a after story to The Last Wish. The Last Wish was basically like the very first prequel that gave us a real taste and understanding of who Geralt is as a character, you know, what he's all about, what this world is like, as well as some information about his relationship with a few characters, including Yennefer, who is his main love interest to some extent. And then also Dandelion. Dandelion being the little bard character that floats in and out every now and then. Just basically really giving us a clear idea of who Geralt is, some of his relationships, what he does when it comes to tracking down creatures and going on bounties, things of that nature. Now, Sword of Destiny is a little bit more linear in terms of storytelling. The Last Wish we saw, it was very much kind of like jumping around from things that were happening in one timeline, and then we would jump to stories of what Geralt was doing, leading up essentially to him being at this monastery-like area where he was being healed. And so there was a lot of jumping around. It wasn't as linear of a story. Sword of Destiny is much more linear in the sense that this is really helping us to not only learn more about Geralt and his relationships and his relationship with this world and the things that each of his adventures really bring to light about this world, but there's also a very important character that is brought up in this story that does transfer over to the main series that we will see going on in The Witcher, which is the character of Ciri, the 12-year-old half-elfin, or with something to that effect, child that he comes across. There is multiple stories in this that involve Ciri, and this is really more so the setup. This is more of the prequel you absolutely need to read if you're going to get into The Witcher. The Last Wish is very much optional. I think that based on the way that both of them are set up, it's definitely good to read The Last Wish, but it also doesn't have to be something you read before reading the main series. This Sword of Destiny is what I would consider to be the main prequel that you need to read in order to understand the background of what the main series is about. Because a lot of stuff in Blood of Elves that we'll talk about, really, like, a lot of things that are involved in that book are explained in this book. They are explained in this one in terms of understanding what Ciri is, why Geralt is working with her, why he's protecting her, all these things. But we're going to go through story by story some of the things that are involved in this, because each of the stories plays a different role in understanding also this world, which I think that in this book, the world in the different aspects that are involved in it, the different problems that are involved with it, are more so brought to light in Sword of Destiny than they were in The Last Wish. So the first story we have is called The Bounds of Reason. This is basically a story where Geralt joins up with this man named Three Jackjaws and a couple of people that essentially, like, they're a band of mercenaries, and a bunch of people are heading off to find the supposed dragon that exists that is going to make a bunch of people rich. And Geralt is very hesitant to join in on this at first, because he's like, I have heard they existed in the past. I don't think they exist anymore, but everyone is making it seem to be like that this is a real thing. And so I'm going to go on this quest with everybody to see what's going on, see what's what, and maybe possibly see a dragon for the first time. You never know. So what happens, though, is that when Geralt goes on this adventure, there's so many other groups of people that are involved in looking for this dragon, and he learns of this very complicated web of politics, of greed. You know, like, there's so many people that are out to get this dragon supposedly for their own reasons. This really kind of talks a lot about this idea of your own morals. Like, what is it that you are willing to put aside to get what you want? Are you willing to sacrifice your own moral standing in order to get what you want, or in order to please somebody else with getting what they need, kind of thing? And it's also this really interesting story of, like, how choices really can make or break your entire life. The choices you make will sometimes come back to haunt you. And in this world, morality is very much blurred. I mean, we know with a lot of high fantasy stories, right, that there is this kind of blurring of morality where some people are kind of like chaotic good or chaotic evil, or, you know, lawful good, lawful evil. Like, there's that whole 9 square kind of archetype-esque thing that we see with a lot of fantasy characters. This is a story that really specifically, this part of it deals with that and talks about that in regard especially to this kind of an adventure. And what we learn in The Bounds of Reason as well is what this dragon is and who this dragon is. And specifically with Geralt, the fact that he goes about this differently than the rest of the mercenaries that are involved in the hunt for this dragon. The dragon itself basically, like, commends him for his ability to refrain from, you know, stepping past his morals and stepping past his obligations as a witcher, and, you know, doing what he could to protect not only the dragon but its horde. And, you know, it really kind of exemplifies who Geralt is and what his real standing in this world is all about, and, like, what exactly he is for and what he's against. This is a story that I think, especially if you had never read The First Wish, would be a story where, if you're going into this, reading only this, you know, before the main series, would give you a very clear idea about who Geralt is as a character, first and foremost, because we don't have very many other characters that we've seen in the past brought up in this. It's very much kind of that introductory story to Geralt himself. Now, the next story we have, called A Shard of Ice. This is a story where we encounter Yennefer. Now, Yennefer, I think, does come in Bounds of Reason. Like, I think she is a part of the group of people going off to find the dragon, if I'm not mistaken. But in Shard of Ice, we actually see the relationship between Geralt and Yennefer. We see them very much, you know, in a relationship. They are in a place that Yennefer is well known in, and she is looking for something and working with someone. And we learn very, very quickly that there is more than meets the eye to Yennefer as an individual. She's a sorceress, for one, so she's extremely powerful, and she's one of the most important sorceresses that there are in this world. But her relationship with Geralt, we see very quickly, is very tumultuous. It's very back and forth, hot and cold. For reasons that are on both Geralt's and Yennefer's side, you really learn that, in Shard of Ice, though, that you learn a lot of Yennefer's side of the problems, like the fact that she doesn't really believe that she's meant to stay with Geralt, even though it's very likely that they're meant to be together. She keeps fighting against it. Geralt, we learn kind of in this, but a little bit more so in like other aspects of the other stories, is that he's a very cold and kind of guarded off guy. He, as a Witcher, is not really meant to have relationships with people. He's a very guarded individual. He's had to harden himself for a lot of reasons. And in that, his emotional state is not really present, especially when it comes to like physical relationships. Like, he physically is able to perform perfectly fine. Hint, hint, wink, 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 nudge, nudge. But when it comes to the emotional sides of things, he is not capable of being super involved in any of that. And that is, I think, one of the things that Yennefer struggles with him, is that she can't get him to open up. She can't get him to actually be a part of an emotional relationship. And so she goes and finds other relations with other people. And this is kind of one of those things where in A Shard of Ice, you see the issue with their relationship at its core. But you also see what Geralt is willing to lose to get what he wants. Because in A Shard of Ice, this other man that is also a sorcerer, that Yennefer is also banging on the side, basically, the two of them get into an altercation where they basically want to fight to the death over Yennefer. And Yennefer's like, peace, I'm out of here. I'm not going to get in the middle of this. I am going to let you two sort this out, and I'm just going to go on my merry way. And she just goes, bye, I'm out of here. And then what happens is the wizard or the sorcerer, he becomes really depressed when he finds the note that Yennefer leaves him and finds out that she's left him and that she's not coming back. And he quite literally wants Geralt to fight him to the death so that Geralt can kill him, because he's like, I can't live without her, all these things. And Geralt basically goes, if you want to kill yourself, go kill yourself in the stable. I'm not gonna be a part of this. I'm not gonna be the one that's gonna kill you because you want to die. Like, that's not how I do things. That's not how I work. And, maybe I'm better off without Yennefer for right now. But regardless, he constantly is on the hunt for her. Every place he goes, Geralt is constantly looking for her. He's constantly looking to see what she's doing, what she's up to. So you can very clearly see in that story specifically the tumultuous relationship that they have, how deeply he cares for her, even if he's not emotionally able to really express it. But you do see in that the struggle that he has with having this relationship with her at all, when he's got these other things going on as well. Excuse me. So then we move on to the third story, which is called The Eternal Flame. Now, The Eternal Flame has Geralt going to the city of Novigrad, where he becomes kind of involved in this cult by accident, the cult of the Eternal Fire. And there's a lot of murders that are going around the city. There's a lot of things that are going on, and a lot of it has to do with religious fanaticism, like obviously with the fact that there's a cult involved in this city. He's having to deal with that. He's having to deal with people using their faith for their personal gain and using it to manipulate people and get them to do what they want. It's really a story that I think just paints a really good picture of how religion is set up in this world, where there are places and there are people who are using their faith in order to get people to do what they want and scare them, using scare tactics, or, telling people that if they don't follow what they're doing, that there's going to be consequences, things of that nature. And so Within that story, like I said, there's a series of murders that happens that Geralt is being asked to look into, and it has stuff to deal with the cult of eternal fire. There's stuff that's going on in this city that are very dark, deep, and mysterious. And this whole story is basically him just delving into that, which doesn't really paint much of a picture other than, again, really looking at Geralt as a character, what he is for, what he's against, but also gives a really good look at specifically one city that is extremely popular, is extremely huge, and how, religion plays into that city. Also, I think that that's what the story where there's the dwarf who there's a changeling of some kind that like takes his identity, and it's interesting. Like it has to do with the story, but it's kind of like one of those funny little side stories that I think was really always entertaining for me, because I just can't help but think of like the Spider-Man meme where it's like they're like pointing at each other. It always makes me giggle when I think of that story. The next story makes me very, very sad, to be completely honest. It is the one that I think I feel the most heartbroken within, and that is the story called A Little Sacrifice. This is the one where we have Dandelion in the story. Dandelion comes in the Eternal Flame, and he comes across this other bard named Essie Daven, and she's incredibly talented. She's followed in the footsteps of Dandelion. She's very well respected, and basically when she and Geralt meet, they start up this kind of fling. She is besotted with Geralt, and Geralt is really not in a place where he's able to fully commit to her, because he expresses his problems with Yennefer and his inability to emotionally like be a part of a relationship. But Essie is like, I don't care, like I want to be with you. But it really exemplifies how fleeting love can be, and especially Geralt's life, and how there are a lot of sacrifices that are needed to be made in a very dangerous world such as this. And the sacrifice that Geralt, I think, tends to use is that he, I think, sacrifices his own happiness for a lot. He sacrifices his happiness with his relationships. He sacrifices his happiness with his life, because he has moral obligations to him that are more important, which is very likely another reason why his relationship with Yennefer doesn't pan out very well. Hi, Scarlett. So it's actually, it's a Gabby. That's how my name is spelled. But I appreciate it. Hi, Bree. No worries. Don't worry about it. So yeah, if you want to hang out for the rest of the talk about sort of Destiny, by all means, and then dip out when I get to Blood of Elves, totally fine. Not a big deal at all. So Little Sacrifice is basically the story of Geralt meeting somebody else, the possibility of him even having a relationship with anyone other than Yennefer. Like, this one makes me so sad, because it's one of those stories where I think Geralt would be so happy with somebody like Essie. Somebody that is going to take care of him, someone that is going to love him no matter what, is not going to, hurt him. Like, he deserves the world, in my opinion. And Essie could give him that. But he stands in his own way, and it breaks my heart, because I don't care for Yennefer. Yennefer is a character that, when I first read about her, I was like, I don't like the way that she's toying around with my boy. Like, I don't like it. It stinks. It sucks. It's awful. And so when you meet Essie and you see that she is like the complete antithesis of Yennefer, you're like, yes, this is the kind of person I want for my boy. I want him to be happy. I want him to have this relationship. But he stands in his own way. And he's not willing to sacrifice her. He's not willing to use her as a sacrifice, like in the event that they go on some adventure and she dies. He would hate himself for the rest of his life if something happened to her on his watch. And I know that. But he's also not willing to give up his obligations. And that breaks my heart. It really does. It breaks my heart because I think Geralt deserves the world. He does so much for so many people without even really being asked to, and he gets very little in return from it. He is beaten on. He is like, this man goes through so much. I just want him to be happy, for God's sake. Is that so much to ask? Apparently so, according to Andrzej Sapkowski. Looking at my review when I read Sword of Destiny, and I stated I didn't like Yennefer. Yeah, she grew on me too. There's a point that we'll talk about when we get to Blood of Elves where she kind of grows on me, but initially, especially when I first read A Shard of Ice, I was like, Yennefer can go jump off a cliff. I don't like her. I don't want her. I don't want her associating with my boy. I would wanted to protect him like a child. Like, you are not allowed to be a part of his life. Go away. You are nothing but trouble. You are nothing but pain and misery. Get away from him. And then Essie, I just am like, she's so sweet. She is like, just everything about her screamed, this is the person that Geralt should be with. This is not something that he should be giving up, and yet he does, and it breaks my heart. He really does. Get it together. Yeah, seriously, get it together. Like, this is a woman that would literally throw herself at your feet for, like, she would throw herself at your feet, and she would lay her life on the line for you. Essie would. And it hurts that Geralt doesn't let himself get involved like that, but it is what it is. So now let's move into the titular title, which is Sword of Destiny. Sword of Destiny, we learn of basically what the actual destiny of Geralt is in this world. Sword of Destiny is the beginning of understanding what a large part of the main series is going to be about. He is faced with a very difficult choice that's going to impact the lives of others, and he's really forced to look at himself as a Witcher and the responsibility that he carries as a Witcher. We see him really go through it in this. Because what happens is then in the next story with Ciri, because Sword of Destiny, we learn about Ciri. We meet Ciri for the first time when Geralt is actually on a completely different quest. He comes across this man who was going after Ciri, who had essentially escaped this kingdom, which we later learn is the kingdom of Sintra, which is a place that we've seen Geralt at before. And I'm going to go back and talk about this whole thing in totality because there's a lot that goes on in the titular story of Sword of Destiny that deals with this. But basically, Geralt finds Ciri. He's already on a quest to go to this like elven secret like kingdom to talk with somebody, and he brings Ciri along. And they are obsessed with Ciri, these elven people. They are obsessed with her, and they find out that Ciri and Geralt are basically meant to be tied together. They are meant to work together because Geralt is basically going to be Ciri's protector and raise her to be a Witcher, and she is going to be the thing that brings this whole world to its knees, essentially. And we learn about who Ciri is. Now, Ciri is the daughter of the Queen of Sintra that we met in The Last Wish. So there is a point in this book where it is important to have read The Last Wish, if for nothing but the story about the Queen of Sintra and Queen Calanthe, because Ciri comes from them. If any of you remember in The Last Wish, oops, my phone was starting to go off because I was saying the Siri name, but in here it's spelled Ciri. So anyway, what happens in The Last Wish is there's a story where Geralt goes to this kingdom and he is tasked with basically like looking out over this kingdom, helping the queen with figuring things out. And there is this man that comes by that tells the queen about how he is basically owed the hand of the daughter of the Queen of Sintra. And this is where we see things kind of happen because the Queen Calanthe, she agrees to this whole thing. We find out that, they live and get married and have, a baby. And that baby is Ciri in this. And we learned that Queen Calanthe has basically been raising her from when she was a young child because her parents had died in a terrible accident. And so Queen Calanthe has been the one that's been raising her. And Ciri was basically being told that she was going to go off and get married to somebody else. But on the way there, she escapes and meets with Geralt, and everything kind of comes around there. So what happens, though, is this Elven kingdom, they say, listen, Geralt, this kid is going to basically be, she is the key to your destiny. She is the one that is going to lead you down the path that you are meant to go down. She is going to change this entire world with the blood that she has. She is going to basically be a cataclysm in this world. And you are there to protect her, to raise her, to help her. So, yeah. That's why I said last time that in one other story, we're the start of the overarching plot of the series. Yes. So like I said, it is important that like you read The Last Wish if for nothing but that story. But The Last Wish, like otherwise you could probably read like after if you wanted to, but I decided to read it before because of the fact that it is like the prequel, the first prequel of the series. Or maybe I didn't say it out right during the last live. It's okay. Don't remember. That's all right. I'm glad we read The Last Wish. It made so much sense. I'm glad it came back around. Yes, me too. And that's what I wanted specifically out of reading The Last Wish was I knew that when I read that in Sword of Destiny the first time, I caught that whole thing with Queen Calanthe and, you know, all this. And then getting into Blood of Elves, we're going to see that come along a lot faster and a lot more intensely in terms of what is at stake in this world. One thing Sapkowski is good at is foreshadowing. Yes, he is very good at foreshadowing. I mean, even like some of the most little of things make so much of a difference in terms of like how the rest of the story goes. Like he does a really good job of like building up pieces that make then sense where you're like, oh, that's what that was about. Like he's just a fantastic writer in general. And I have enjoyed rereading these so much more this time than I have other times I've read them. And I'm excited to finally be able to get through the rest of the series because I never finished it. And I'm just excited to see how this continues to snowball because Blood of Elves, I'm going to say, oh boy, that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff that was happening. So yeah, Sword of Destiny goes through that. The question of price really is where we start to see more of that story kind of coming in with Ciri and the path that they are, you know, destined towards. And at the very end of this book, we know that at one point Geralt and Ciri go their separate ways because Geralt is like, I'm not going to take charge of this kid. Like, there's no way. You can't tell me what is destiny and what is not. But very quickly, there is a war that starts up. There's a war that starts up, and it is people killing people. It is, you know, all these different races of individuals in this world out for blood. Kingdoms are coming together and fighting each other for rule of the land. And we learn Geralt then goes off to find Ciri and finds her having lived with this family for the last, you know, couple months, you know, kind of thing. And she is excited to see him. She's like, am I going to go with you? And he's like, yep, you're coming with me. I'm taking you away. I understand now what my destiny is. Like he basically has an epiphany moment where he's like, I need to go find her. I believe in this destiny now. And because he never did before. Geralt is very much a man where he is very much set in his ways. He believes certain things. He doesn't believe other things. And it's very hard to get him to understand things like destiny. And when he finally has this aha moment that Ciri is important to him and is going to be important to him and he has to protect her, he's like, light bulb, gotta go find the kid. Let's go. So that basically ends off Sword of Destiny for us. Now, there's a lot that goes on in this book in general. I mean, the first thing is obviously destiny itself and the consequences of choices, in my opinion, because there's so many moments where Geralt is faced with choices that he very easily could have gone the other way. And it could have caused any number of issues or good things or anything like that. I mean, let's think about this. You know, the dragon. He could have killed the dragon, and that could have caused disastrous things. He could have let the other people kill the dragon. When it came to Shard of Ice, he could have killed the wizard that Yennefer was seeing behind his back, but he didn't. He could have, he could have done so many different things differently. And the consequences of choices that we make are so important. Like, you have to be aware of what kind of choices you're making and understand that no matter what you choose, there's going to be in some way a consequence. So you have to be able to live with the choice that you're going to make, whether it's good or bad. And there's also this questioning of identity and destiny within that. Like, what exactly is my purpose? What exactly is my role in this world? And for Geralt as a Witcher, all he knows at this point is that he's going off to kill, any creatures that he needs to. He's going to protect other people, stuff like that. And his heroism is something that is questioned over the course of several different stories. What exactly makes a hero? Because a hero in so many ways is not a set thing. You can be a hero in so many different ways. And I think Geralt is very much kind of that anti-hero character, which I absolutely love. The anti-hero trope. It is one of my favorites. And I love that Geralt is like a wonderful example of this, because some of the choices he makes, he regrets because of things that happen afterward that he then learns about. But he's also he's someone who you don't fully understand some of his motives, but you appreciate that he is doing his best. Like, he might make certain choices that kind of give you kind of side-eye him about, but you appreciate that he's actually doing his best. He's doing the best with what he has and what he's been given, and that is more heroic than anything else, I think, personally. And it's just so fascinating, especially with this, to see that, because in The Last Wish, we kind of got things of that. We got a little bit of understanding of that aspect. Sword of Destiny takes that a step further with so many of these different instances that he goes across. And this is much more of a linear timeline than The Last Wish was. Sword of Destiny definitely is more episodic. That is like in order of like, okay, so sees Yennefer with the dragon. The next story is them in a very, intense relationship, and we see that there's more to her than we understand, all these different things. And then we find out, about other things going on in the world after the two of them split up, and we see Dandelion, and Dandelion comes with us where we meet Essie, and then they split up and Geralt meets Ciri, and then we have the whole thing with all that. So I just really appreciate how this one was much more linear. And The Last Wish, I think, is probably, it's linear, but it's kind of one of those things where it jumps back in time so much that it makes it feel really disjointed. Whereas I think initially, if I'm not mistaken, I had these backwards, where I thought that The Last Wish was linear. This was not. I was wrong if that was the case, because this is much more linear than The Last Wish. I actually think I enjoyed this a lot more than I did The Last Wish. I gave them both 4 stars, but in terms of enjoyment, this one I loved more. The one thing I will say about this that I really struggled with was some of the scenes that were going on were so complex and so atmospheric. I kind of just got lost, and my brain kind of turned off for a minute. And so I would miss chunks of, especially when we got to the part of learning about Ciri and stuff like that. So there were points where I just, for some reason, my brain just checked out. And I hate when that happens in fantasy, because that tells me that the writing style, it's for some reason, it's not catching my attention as well at certain points, or the parts are kind of more boring, quote unquote. But overall, my enjoyment of this was still immense. And I think I enjoyed it a lot more this time around than I did the last time. Yes, it definitely feels much more closer to a novel. It really does, because it feels more, like I said, that linear aspect feels more real. It feels more like what we would see from a pretty traditional fantasy novel. So yeah, what did you guys think about this? What were your guys' thoughts of Sword of Destiny? What did you rate it, if you rated it? What were some of your favorite stories? I think my favorite story, quite truthfully, is probably A Little Sacrifice. I think that was my favorite one out of this entire book, because I just adore Essie. Essie is probably one of my favorite characters of the entire world. Definitely had that happen lots in later books of the series. Okay. I think it got overwhelmed by the political details and all the characters. Yeah, that was the other thing. The political details, I think I checked out on a lot. And I think especially when it came to when we were in the Elven Kingdom, that is where my brain kind of like shut off. And I think it's not the fault of the author. I just don't care for too much political stuff, because I get very lost very quickly in a lot of it, and understanding who is at fault. And like, or who is involved where, and who's not involved in this, and who's kind of involved in this but not really, and who really is. And it's one of those things where I just can't fully wrap my head around a lot of political stuff. So I am very much more, I find more so recently now than before, I am more of I like the world, I like magic, politics, I can do with some, but not very much. And there are points in this series where I think that it can get very heavy-handed, and I lose track of it. Now, if I was watching it, for instance, if I was watching a show that had that, like how Game of Thrones, for instance, is, and how the show for The Witcher is, I could absorb that a little bit better. But for some reason, when it comes to writing and understanding it, I have a much harder time than I do if I'm like watching a TV show or watching a movie that has a lot of political aspects. Because I can at least put names to faces and feel a little bit more concrete in that. Whereas within a book, like a physical book or ebook or audiobook, it is a lot more intense. And it's a lot harder for me to keep track of everything. And I feel like the guy from It's Sunny in Philadelphia with the big map and all the string, and he's like, ah, that kind of thing. Then maybe be prepared to annotate from now on. The politics is a lot. Yeah, funny thing, I am really bad at annotating, because I am afraid to annotate any books unless I've read them multiple times and I know I'm going to keep the book for whatever reason. There are a very, very few books that I do this with, because specifically those books are books I've read several times, and will do anything to them that I want. Like the few books that I have, one of which is the Renegade series by Marissa Meyer. One of my absolute favorite trilogies, annotated all 3 of the books, because I was like, there is no way I'm giving these babies up. These are my books. They are going to go down to my children, truthfully. Read the series again, and it wasn't until watching the show I finally understood all the players and the politics. Yeah, I think that would be the way I'd have to go with understanding this, is that because I haven't seen the show in a while. I watched like a couple episodes of the first season, and then I was like, I probably should read the books, basically. And so I don't know whether the show goes as heavily into the politics, because I know that the first season was supposed to go off of The Last Wish, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if they go super heavy into the politics in the show, and I know it's actually still being worked on, even though Henry Cavill is no longer going to be our Geralt, which is upsetting. I hate when that happens, but I'm glad that he stood his ground and he moved on. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know whether the show has as much of a grip on the politics to where, like, if I watched it, if I would understand it fully. But I mean, at this point, I probably could just watch it, because what else am I watching? My upteenth rerun of Scrubs? That's what I'm doing. Answer your question. I gave this 4 stars. My favorite character is Dandelion, still as after all this time. He's a riot. Like, seriously, the antics that man gets into is hilarious. And if I'm not mistaken, like, when it comes to the show in particular, he is a favorite of a lot of people, even if he's very annoying at times. But he's a bard. He's supposed to be annoying. He's supposed to be over the top. That's what I love about the bards. Which, funny side note, my husband is on his second playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, and he's playing a bard this time. The first time he played a druid, and this time he's playing a bard, which is very fun, and it's actually a playthrough where I am helping him with making decisions this time. So we're getting into all kinds of antics, and if anyone is a Baldur's Gate fan, we currently have Astarion, Lae'zel. We've basically collected almost all the characters, I think, at this point, except for Karlach. But we are maining right now Astarion, Gale, and Shadowheart, I think. But we have Lae'zel and Will on the back burner. Like, they're there, and we still have to find Karlach, but yeah. Anyway, fun side note. Show has changed some things in the timeline. One major plot point gets spoiled early. Oh, okay. All right, good to know. Good to know. Okay, so we are going to take a hard shift over to the next book. So many Baldur's Gate 3 fans. Honestly, I had not heard about it until I was seeing it all over TikTok when it first came out. And my husband was interested in it, and he got it. We got it. Basically, he got like a gift card thing for Xbox from my parents for Christmas so that he could buy it because he was so interested in it, but he didn't really want to pay for it right at that time. So anyway, he ended up getting it, and he nonstop. He played through the entire thing all on his own. And meanwhile, I've learned all about the game just through TikTok. That's it. Like, I learned everything about this game pretty much just because of what I was watching on TikTok. And I fell in love with the characters just because of how I was seeing people play it through TikTok and other social media apps. And like, it's a beautiful game. It is so much fun to watch people play. Like, seriously, if I could play it myself, I would, but I'm too lazy to. So I'm vicariously living through my husband because I'm too lazy to play it by myself. So anyway, we're going to take a hard shift there with that little side story into Blood of Elves, which is the very first book in the series. So for those of you that have not gotten caught up with us, this was the book that we were to read in March. So if you've not read this, I highly suggest moving away because we are going to be talking spoilers about this book. And I'm going to pull up my notes that I have because that's how I've been keeping track of everything in my brain at this point. So fair warning, we are moving on to Blood of Elves. If you have not read this, see you bye. Take a fruit snack on your way out if you have fruit snacks. I don't have any on me, so. And that was a quote from a TikToker that I follow that I absolutely adore. If you know who that is, let me know. Anyway, all right, so Blood of Elves. This is the first book officially in the series of The Witcher. So we've gone over The Last Wish, the prequel of the prequels, and we've gone over Sword of Destiny, the secondary prequel that really has the most amount of information to where you will likely need to read that before getting into this. I'd still recommend reading The Last Wish if you can before reading the main series, but to each their own. Some people wait until they're done with it, and that's fine. So, I need to buy them. I've had library books, but I need to annotate and write notes. Yeah. I've been like writing notes like on the side kind of thing. That's how I've been doing it. But I think that if I was to read the series again, I would probably annotate it that next time I read it. Truthfully, like, I think that this is a series I will keep because I just love this world so much, and I will definitely annotate it. But all right, so this is basically a direct continuation of the stories that are involved in The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny. So if you hadn't read those books, you probably should before getting into this because there's a lot of information, especially in Sword of Destiny, that pertains to what is in Blood of Elves. This is less of a short story collection, and more so, this is actually like the first novel in this world. Now, the first thing is that we learn very, very early on that there's been this huge battle that picks up, and there's been this war going on, for a couple of years at this point. There is one particular battle that happens at the very beginning that's called the Battle of Sodden Hill. And here, Yennefer and Geralt reunite after Geralt thought that Yennefer had died at some point, but she didn't. They reunite and they escape the carnage that there is in the Battle of Sodden. They take shelter in Kaer Morhen, which is basically this area where the Witchers are held. It's like where their schooling takes place, basically. It's like their compound, if you will. And in Kaer Morhen, Yennefer is introduced to another sorceress who is Geralt's mentor, Triss Merigold. And she's also introduced to Ciri. And shut up, Apple. That's not what I wanted. So basically, that's like where everybody starts to kind of culminate together. If I owned these, they'd be tabbed to hell, a different color for each king and mage. Yeah, seriously. Holy moly. So what we learn is that, obviously Ciri is the main figure of the novel. She's the one that everything is centered around. She's the one that everyone is either looking for to either use her for their own purposes or kill her, because her lineage and her blood is basically going to bring about a lot of different things involved in this war, and bringing certain kingdoms down to their knees and raising others, kind of thing. So she's basically considered the child of destiny that we learn about when we were in Sword of Destiny. We learned that she's basically going to be this really powerful thing. Now, there are 3-ish plot lines that go into this. Like, this is a little bit less linear, where there's some things that happen where it harkens back to earlier instances of things that we haven't seen, that we learn about. And one of the things that we learn a lot about is Ciri's training over the course of this story, where a lot of it we learn about how she's learning things under Geralt, under Triss, under Yennefer. There's so many different things that happen in this, and we really see the relationship build between Geralt and Ciri, where he acts like a father figure to her, which is incredibly sweet. It's one of the things I love about this series is this relationship between the two of them, because Geralt, he loves her, he wants to take care of her, he wants to protect her, more so than just because she is this destined child. He develops such a bond with her that it is unlike anything I think he has ever felt for any other person. Like, I think truly in some ways he views her as a daughter of sorts, or like a little sister at the very least. And like, just watching him build this relationship with her and teach her what he knows, and being proud of her when she does certain things that she struggled with, like, it's just one of those most beautiful things to watch as you're reading the story. And it just makes my heart burst, because I think about when I'm subbing for any of the schools that I go to. Like, just yesterday, I had a kid who struggled the first time I met him with, blurting out, things like that. Like, just being like a kid in a gen ed class, just having like behaviorally like a lot of problems. Yesterday, he had a perfect day. And he had such a great day that we called his mom to let her know that he had a great day. And the smile that came on this kid's face when he talked to his mom made my heart burst. And that is the feeling I get when I read the story between Geralt and Ciri, is that beautiful relationship between them blossoming. It is unlike anything I have read previously, and it just makes my heart so happy. But we see a lot of her going through and doing her training. We see her doing a lot of like healing training under Triss Merigold. We see her doing a lot of sorcery training with Yennefer in a later part of the book. And we also learn a lot about the things that are going on in this world. Because as I said, there's a war going on. There's kingdoms that are fighting each other. They're all looking for Ciri to some extent, either to use her or kill her. It basically leads to the fact that the reason Ciri is so important is because not only is she from a lineage in terms of kingdoms that is incredibly powerful and can be used for great purposes, great being however you interpret that, but she also has blood in her that is of an elf line that is extremely powerful. And it's like one of those things where it was prophesized years and years and years before about how she is like going to bring about a end of days sort of like feeling kind of scenario. I know. Like this poor girl has so much on her shoulders and she doesn't even know it. She doesn't know any of what's going on. The only people that know are the adults of this world, as is typical with fantasy. The kids don't know jack shit. The adults know everything and they don't tell anything to the kids because they don't want to scare them. But this poor girl has literally the entire world on her shoulders and she has grown men coming after her to kill her. This child is 12, 13 years old. And she has so many people coming after her to kill her because of who she is and what she's destined to do. What if she fails? Is it possible for her to fail? Or is it like that plays into a whole thing about what destiny really is? Like, is there such a thing as failing when you're destined to do something? Or is the failure destined? Who really knows? Excuse me. So basically there is there's so many different groups of people. There's kingdoms. There's the Nilfgaardian Empire. They are looking to use her. You know, they want to use her to expand their empire. The more human-based what the heck is the kingdom called? I can't remember. The main kingdom that we're a part of. They want to kill her because essentially they don't want her to fall into the wrong hands. So they want to kill her before anybody gets a chance to use her. And then there's a lot of sorceresses that are looking to use her for their own means. Like there's so many people that are after her. And it's heartbreaking when you realize that she is completely ignorant to everything that is happening around her. She just knows that she's being hammered with school stuff. And that's it. Nobody's telling her anything. Nobody's saying anything to her about what's really going on. And she's having to piece things together on her own. And it just breaks your heart when she does find out. Oh, I know it's going to get worse. You don't even have to tell me. I can already tell it's going to get worse. Because if this is how we're starting off with this girl, oh, I can't even begin to imagine. I can't even begin to imagine the things that she's going to experience. And it's going to kill me, I think, on the inside a little bit. But the third and final thing that I want to talk about is Yennefer. Yennefer, obviously, we know quite a bit about at this point because of the things we've learned about in Last Wish, Sword of Destiny, all that. So she becomes one of the mentors of Ciri. Like I said, she ends up being the mentor specifically that's teaching her sorcery, that's teaching her how to use magic because she's able to use magic. And she wants to protect her just as much as Geralt does. Because I think Yennefer sees a lot of herself in Ciri, truthfully. I think that she sees somebody that not only reminds her of herself, but is so innocent that like they can be so easily corrupted like Yennefer was. And that's kind of where the Lodge of Sorceresses kind of come in. Because obviously, Yennefer is a part of some group, right? She knows other sorceresses. She knows other sorcerers. She collaborates with people in the Lodge to keep Ciri safe. But, I think you mean Redania. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Ciri was of Sintra, but Sintra is no more. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. It was like there's a huge amalgamation of kingdoms that all are a part of like one world, and then there's the Nilfgaardian Empire, which is like completely separate. I just couldn't remember what the name of it was. So Yennefer, though, has her own agenda in doing so. Like, it's not just to protect Ciri. It's more like there's other things going on with what Yennefer is planning that we don't really know the full extent of as of yet. And we also see over the course of the story, the more that she sees Geralt, the more that she becomes involved in his world, you know, their relationship kind of deepens. And again, I don't really like her with Geralt. I want to keep her far away from him. But when it came to the whole interaction and learning of how she was training Ciri, I started to kind of she started to grow on me a little bit. And that's being generous, because Yennefer's a bit of a bitch, if you don't know. She's a bit of a bitch. And I like that about her, but at the same time, like, there's certain instances where I'm like, girl, stop. Like, you don't gotta do that. Just stop. Just stop. You're doing too much. Yeah. I don't know how to feel about her 100% at this point, because I feel like she's going to... I'm nervous, I guess I'll say, because I don't know whether or not she is going to do something more for herself within this and teaching Ciri and everything. I'm nervous about how she's going to treat Geralt at the end of it all. And I'm nervous that she's going to die at the same time at some point. I don't want to like her, but I kind of do at some point at the same time. It's kind of, it's a very conflicting battle, I will say. So basically, though, what happens then by the time this book ends? We see Geralt, who's basically in the middle of all of this. I mean, the story is really more so centered around Ciri, but Geralt obviously has his own things that are going on, and, you know, you see him over the course of the entire story for the most part, except for when we learn about the training that Yennefer divulges into. But he's in the middle of so many things. He's involved in the protecting of Ciri. He's trying to still figure out his identity as a Witcher. What side of the war is he meant to be on? Because, you know, there's a very important scene when him, Ciri, and Triss Merigold are traveling, where they come across this group of people when Triss is really sick. And there is this whole interaction that really forces Geralt to have to think about what exactly side he is on, if he is on a side of this war. Because there's so many things that are, like, being said about the Nilfgaardians, about the other kingdoms, and, like, he has no idea where he is supposed to be in all of this. All he knows is that he has to protect the girl, and that's it. So how does being a witcher, like, what does being a witcher mean anymore to him? What does it mean for him to be a witcher? What does it mean in this world? What does it mean as a man for him to live in this world? And it's kind of one of those things where you start to have an existential crisis. And that's basically what he's doing in this story, is he's having a bit of an existential crisis that we've seen since in Sword of Destiny. But it's to a greater degree in this book. And I think this is something that's going to carry on in the rest of the books. And it's probably not going to be until close to the very end of the series. This is just a guess at this point. It probably won't be until closer to the end of the series that he finally figures himself out. And he figures out things about him and Yennefer and all that other garbage. But yeah. So as far as what I rated this, I think, again, I think I gave this a 4-star. Yeah, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars again. Again, same reason really as before. The politics thing, way over my head. Lost track of it at some point, but I at least understand the core of it, which was that there's kingdoms literally fighting each other, and everyone's wanting Ciri at some point. So that's basically all I know about that. But what did you guys think of Blood of Elves? Now, because this is the first novel, I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because this is the first official novel of the series. And since we've read both Sword of Destiny, and The Last Wish. What are your thoughts about how everything's tied together? Do you like the way that everything's tied together in those prequels for this? Do you like the way that he did that? Like, what are your thoughts now that we are in the main series after having read the stuff that is like considered to be super important? Gave it 3 stars. So what was it about it that you disliked the most in terms of the story to where you gave it a 3-star? Because I think for me, I loved learning so much about what's going on in this world, but like the whole chapter where it was all the kingdoms talking about Ciri and what to do with her, that went completely over my head. But the most I got from that is that there's some that are going to try to want her for their purposes. There's some people that are going to try to kill her. That's all I got from that. That's all I cared about at that point. But that whole chapter was pretty rough one for me because it was so politically heavy. And that is one thing I think that Sapkowski really struggled with. He was very heavy-handed with the politics stuff. Instead of it being sprinkled out throughout the book, it was one full chapter dedicated to this, and then some sprinkling in other places. Politics. Yeah, okay. Yep, that makes sense, because I felt the same. I think that it was, like, I understood it enough to where I was like, it's not, like, that big of a deal, but that's a theme I am finding, or that's a pattern I am seeing, I should say, of what Sapkowski's writing is like. He is very, very much a heavy political writer, and he's very heavy-handed with it, and very heavy-fisted with it, and it's just plop right in the middle of the book. It was very realistic, but from a reader's perspective, it wasn't explained who was from where. Yeah, that was the other thing, too. I felt really confused of who was what and who was where, and I was confused about that in Sword of Destiny, but I was more so confused when I got to this. It was just, like I said, it was so heavy-handed that I just could not piece together who was from what. This is where I discovered I don't like when non-essential characters tell the story. Yeah, okay, I get that. If any series needs a map, it's this one. Yes, that was one thing I hated about these editions, is that there's no map. There's no map anywhere, and this is the perfect series to have a map in the story. Why is there no map? Why? It would have looked so cool, too. I wonder, because these are like reprints of the books, right? My edition that I have is specifically the ones that they made when the Netflix show was first coming out several years ago. Who's to say that the original printings didn't have the maps? But if they did, why wouldn't they put them in? I don't think the editions that are even newer, the ones where they're like all white, I don't even think those have a map in it, to be completely honest. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If anybody has those editions and they have a map, please tell me. But so could have done with a map. So could have done with a map. Any fantasy that does not have a map, what are you doing? Truthfully. Help you guys, Nilfgaard is this huge empire in the south. Everyone else is a country in the north. Okay. So Nilfgaard's down here. Everywhere else is up there. That makes sense. That's good. But, see if I had any other notes. No, I think I pretty much went over everything I needed to, which is good. So, yeah, that's basically it. So we have now gone through 3 books in the Witcher series. We are getting ready to go into book 2, which in the main series, which is The Time of Contempt, which is over here in my stack. I'm not going to grab it because it's going to be annoying for me to try to get up and find it. So anyway, we are going to look at the synopsis basically of what the Time of Contempt is going to get into. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share this. All right. Make sure that looks good. Okay, good. Each country's king and queen has a court mage. Some also have spies. official intelligent agents versus unofficial spies, assassins. Yeah, as most kingdoms do, truthfully. Okay, so we've got Time of Contempt here. So Geralt is a witcher, guardian of the innocent, protector of those in need, a defender in dark times against some of the most frightening creatures of myth and legend. His task now is to protect Ciri, a child of prophecy. She will have the power to change the world for good or for ill, but only if she lives to use it. A coup threatens the Wizards Guild. War breaks out across the lands. A serious injury leaves Geralt fighting for his life. Goodness! And Ciri, in whose hands the world's fate rests, has vanished. Ooh, goodness gracious! Yikes! The mages are mostly from the Brotherhood, but you'll get more about that later. Yeah. So, oh dear. So not only is our main girl gone, our main boy ain't doing so well. So this is going to be an interesting one. I am curious too to see about the Wizards Guild. What the heck is going on with that? Is Yennefer involved in that? Because I know she's a sorceress, but sorcerers and wizards are like slightly different, especially if you're looking for like a D&D standpoint. They are two very different types of magic wielders. So I think that they're different in this world as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious to see what's going on with the Wizards Guild and if Yennefer has anything to do with it or if she picks up on what's going on with that and like what she can do. But I don't know, because there's the Lodge of the Sorceresses, which she's already been in contact with and she's a part of, right? What's going on with the Wizards Guild? Do they work together? Like, I don't understand. I mean, like I said, it could very well be that, the wizards and the sorcerers are completely different, like they are in D&D. It could be that they're the same thing, because I feel like a lot of people get those two things, like, put together. Either wizards and sorcerers are the same thing or they're separate. Like, I don't really know. But we'll figure all that out probably in that book. So, I think the translation's messed up here to an extent. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be, because, I mean, think about it. Like, because they came from Polish. They were translated from Polish. And yeah, like, it could very well be that there's a mistranslation somewhere or something got lost in translation. I would not be surprised, but I'm just curious to see if they make mention of it at all, about whether or not wizards and sorcerers are the same thing or if they're separated. I don't know. We'll see. But so for the Time of Contempt, we are going to be doing the live show in May, and I will do my best to make sure that we do that, because the Time of Contempt is our read for April. I'm going to do my best to make sure that I stay on top of this and I don't push off another month like I did with Sword of Destiny. But guys, my life has been just crazy the last few weeks. It's been a little rough. So, but so dramatic. I know. I had to be. Brotherhood is all mages, male and female. Okay, cool. So the live show for the Time of Contempt will be May 4th, Saturday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you, for those Star Wars fans out there. So we will do the live show then, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just like we've done before. And like I said, I will do my best to make sure that I stay on top of that and actually like do the live show that day. It's been a time, guys. So I'm happy that I was able to come and do this today, truthfully, because I was this close from canceling again. But I didn't. So, yay. I don't think I'm going to do sprints tonight. I think I'm just going to chill for the night, because I've been doing a lot. I've been doing way too much, truthfully. And I kind of just want to relax for the night. Like, I might still read tonight, but I don't think I'm going to do sprints. But somebody else might be doing sprints. So definitely, if you want to do sprints, I don't know. I don't think Bree's doing any. I don't know if Brandy is going to do sprints tonight, because I know she sprinted last night. But Bree is doing, this lovely lady here. Bree is going to be doing sprints very likely tomorrow. She usually does sprints on Sundays starting at about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So like 5 her time, I think. So definitely go and do sprints with her tomorrow. I might be there. I might not be. I don't know. We'll see. Depends on how I'm feeling tomorrow, truthfully. Lodge of Sorceresses comes later. Okay. Yeah, because we got an inkling of them with Yennefer in Blood of Elves. But I am curious to know more about them and what they're all about. That seemed pretty cool. But anyway, that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Hope you guys are having a great night. Thank you guys so much for joining me today and talking about the books with me. And I am excited to see how Time of Contempt is. I am a little nervous based on that synopsis, but I was also being super dramatic, so it might not be that bad. We shall see. But yeah, so the live show for that, like I said, it's going to be Saturday, May 4th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And just make sure to have read the book by then, basically. Unless you want to get spoiled for stuff, then that's fine. That's all on you. Anyway, I'm going to go. You can tell I'm tired because I'm just going crazy. So anyway, I will hopefully see you guys soon. I'm going to still be posting videos and stuff. Like I'm going to have my first week of Aurelium vlog coming out on Monday. Hopefully. So you guys will get to see a little bit of me getting through some stuff. I'm in the middle of 5 books, if you don't know. 5. Because I'm a crazy person. Yeah. So life has been a lot for me too. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I saw your message earlier before the sprints about your grandmother. And so I'm really sorry to hear about that, Scarlett. For me, it's just been like stuff just falling right, left, and center, basically. Joining Tangible. Oh, Courtney. Courtney's doing sprints tomorrow. Okay, yeah, so that's another great person. Tangible reads. Courtney is doing sprints tomorrow around 8:30. So if you want to do that. Have fun with it. I'm proud of you all. Thank you. I'm just, it's just been, yeah. But I did it. I did the live show. Yay. So we're done. Yeah, I figured we didn't sprint on Saturday. I was pretty sure we don't, but I know sometimes Brandy will. Sometimes she'll do it, but not tonight, I guess. That's okay. A lot. Yeah, it's been a lot. Yay. Life is going great. Yeah, no. Anyway, guys, that's it for me tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate it. And I will see you guys in my next video or next time on somebody sprints. Probably I might pop in. So we'll see. But talk to you guys another time. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.